you said biological essentialism, but really
Right.
it's race essentialism, right? Which is that this hierarchy was completely imaginary. The
Sure.
race hierarchy. The male
Yeah.
female dynamic is not imaginary. There is a dynamic there. There is some
Yes.
reality to it. That is not the case for race. I think that is extremely important
Yeah.
to point out because that is the literal power of white supremacy is making sure that people cannot distinguish, right? Because if they could distinguish, then the natural consequences would look different.
Right.
So I think it's important for people to understand that that's part of the mythology is to make sure that people never actually connect reality to their idea of what the natural consequences are. That is pivotal. If they can't keep that separation, then the whole thing falls apart. And yes, so I mean there is some genuine fear that like I mean there it makes sense that people are afraid of all of this, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Because it is quite dangerous. Like what we've been doing is quite dangerous, for all these generations. And so I think that it's just difficult for people to perceive it that way because it's scary. It is
Sure.
very scary, and I mean, and you may end up in danger, like there's people who went to a protest just because they wanted to be a part of standing up for other people's rights, um, and then they get run over by a car and then they're dead,
Yeah.
like I mean like I just think that we have to be honest and confront our fears, and
Yes.
it's something that I've been trying to do a lot in my conversations on race. It's what I do in my actual regular everyday life with
Yep.
strangers. I will have conversations about race, I will bring it up, and I will discuss it, and I try to encourage people not to shy away from those conversations and show people that it's okay to have them, like
Yeah.
and I think that's a start anyway. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree.
Conversation as a
And
start.
yeah, I agree that it's a start and it's good to talk about it. And I think I mean, well, it's a funny thing. It is good to talk about it, but a lot of the discourse about it is super fucked up. I'm sorry with my language. Um,
That's okay. But that's why I started this show, bro, because I thought this exact same thing. So,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. And again, it's really highly politicized now. And I think I would almost say that I think the majority of what we're seeing in terms of, let's see, on social media is in fact driven by politics. Even if those politics have a racial component to them, or racist component to them, it's still kind of driven by the politics of people trying to say, it's been going on so long that people have just kind of bought into the idea that yeah, making make saying that black people want a free lunch or whatever, right? Negative things that they want to say. And it's interesting too, because the whole anti-woke messaging, which is of course much broader than just race, right? It's all kinds of things. Anti-woke really just means anti-liberal, really, at the end of the day. But it's interesting how the attack has changed, where because instead of saying like, I mean, so often, if I try to drill into like someone who I think is being racist and say like, okay, let's talk about, let's have a conversation, get into it. Um, it almost always comes back to affirmative action. It's like it's such a underlying complete, and I think that affirmative action is a proxy for a different thing.
it's
They may
gotta be.
not even
It must be like because that makes no
right.
sense.
Yeah. No, but it is, and you dive into it with the folks. You're like, especially with the anti woke, right? Because there's this whole thing, and what's really fascinating. I went to Evergreen State College down in Olympia, and
Evergreen, huh?
Yeah, I went to Evergreen.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
loved it. Loved that school so much. It was an awesome, awesome, awesome
Good.
experience.
Good.
And I mean, really, I mean, probably the steal of a lifetime in terms of paying public college tuition fees for what was really an elite university. Really, just amazing school. But a lot of this whole campaign, this whole anti woke kind of political campaign that's really growing still in intensity. Um, a, a big one of the kind of catalyst points of it was Brett Weinstein and that whole thing with Evergreen. I don't know if you know that story where he was a professor at Evergreen and he said, "Oh, there's this riot going on," which there was no riot, but he said there was, and uh, he uh, and he's tried to make a big deal about it and ended up going on Tucker Carlson and talking about it, and which was just horrible, horrible, horrible for the school, the faculty, and the students. And it was just, I think it's just an absolute crime, and I really despise that he did that. Um, but then he made a lot of hay off of it and sued the state and made a big settlement for he and his wife, that they then retired from teaching and went on to become anti-vax grifters. But interesting thing about that is that it really did seem like he kind of was a catalyst that put that whole thing of like out of control out of control wokies into, and that wasn't even really black students, right? That was, I mean, if you look at the pictures and stuff, it was mostly white kids.
I mean, it doesn't even matter, right? Like, I
It
mean,
didn't,
the
it didn't, but
BLM protests were, a lot of it was mostly white people actually,
yeah, of
but
course, it's
like,
evergreen.
who gets the reputation? Where does it stick? And it always comes back to the roots of this country. That's why people talk about racism being in the roots, because
Yeah,
it's almost like there's like a latent, invisible like network of like, I don't know, poison for some people that's harmless to others. It always reminds me of the Buffalo shooter. You know, I watch all
yeah,
these horrific videos, all of them. I've seen all kinds of horrific things like that most people never see, so they don't know things exist and what happens. But I watch it all, and I watched that shooter's video, and I watched him running around a store, killing some people, and then coming up to white people and apologizing for scaring them, and then going to kill another black person, and then going up to a white person saying, "Oh no, it's okay, you're fine." You know, it's. I'm like,
that's
how much
yeah.
more do you have to see? Like, it's the most just transparent expression of what white supremacy does to us in this country,
Yes.
over nothing.
Oh yeah. Well, and not only, you know, I mean, when we talk about, well, what does it do to us as a country? I mean, I really, one of the reasons why I'm interested in this whole, one of the reasons of many that I'm interested in this whole topic is that I'm fairly convinced that the reason why our social programs are the way they are and our healthcare system is the way it is and our social safety net is um, poor compared to other developed nations when we're the richest country in the face of history of the earth is because of racism. I really believe that.
I
And
mean, it's hard
so
to argue with that. The evidence is pretty overwhelming. I would say that that is the case. Yeah.
yeah, so it's just like it's such a huge Achilles heel of the United States. And there's racism all over the world and or prejudices of all kinds in terms of ethnic and religious and
Yeah, but
that
we're
kind of thing.
something
So
different here. We're something special. We brewed up something real
we got
special
something
here.
special going on here. Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no
Yeah.
doubt.
And
And it's yeah,
yeah,
so I think it's something important to address, but it is a complex problem. And we're getting back to like when I was talking about politics and what Brett kind of started or put into motion. I think what some people realize, and like for example, Chris Rufo with his well, it started with Lindsay and the so-called squared folks, and then Chris jumped on and dropped his work for the Discovery Institute to move to essentially now at the Manhattan Institute doing a different kind of propaganda. But he, uh, but that evolution of seeing like, oh, this idea of attacking um, wokeness, right? Any effort, which would you would say any effort by anyone to address issues related to people's marginalized communities, right, of any kind, would be absolutely considered wokeness. And the whole idea of then not attacking the identity is so much anymore. Like it used to be more that like the welfare queen thing and that kind of, it was really definitely kind of disparaging, and I mean obviously disparaging, but it was specifically creating negative stereotypes, saying like, yeah, these people are are bad. They're they're inferior and they're bad in various ways. The new strategy is like, no, they're coming to get us.
I mean, that's
They're
that's an
right.
old strategy too, brother.
It
Like,
is not. It is. It is. But I mean, it really, the level of focus on it is really quite crazy. Like it's really, and in a way, it's kind of a natural out evolution, I think, of the politics of division that was really, I think, kind of amplified a lot. It was a kind of catalyzed by Newt Gingrich and Karl Rove, and during like you know, I think early '80s, starting in, and they had a very explicit strategy to you know say, let's focus on these wedge issues and let's amplify these wedge issues and then use that to energize the base, right? And I think that what we're seeing now with racism as a political tactic, or race, it's like almost like moral panics. Like it's like fear. It's like creating fear of trans people, fear of trans of black people, fear of whatever, is still is just a, in a way, a natural evolution of that strategy put in place, you know, by them 20, 30, well, gosh, almost 40 years ago now, right?
yeah, that's right. I'm trying to pull up the Chris Rufo tweet. Let's see. Oh, am I too blocked to be able to see it? The one where he talks about. Oh, here it is. Let's see if I can see it.
Where he explicitly says we're going to expand the meaning of CRT to be
Yeah,
everything that
yeah.
makes people uncomfortable.
Exactly. He was basically just like talking about his master plan, tweeting it, just for the public consumption. Hey,
Yep.
yeah, we're just going to take critical race theory and literally make it toxic. He
We're
literally
going to make it
tweeted
into a
that,
boogeyman. That's literally what he's saying.
and he said we're just going to connect it to as many negative things as we can and extreme things as we can until, you're afraid of it. And then we're just going to keep feeding
Yeah.
that fear.
And look at what they're doing now. They're starting to like create laws that are trying to essentially censor school teachers and libraries because they've created this panic.
Yeah. I mean, they are censoring them, Like, I mean,
Yeah.
books are flying off shelves. They're being reviewed by the council, like,
Oh yeah.
we've got, I know some people who live in Florida and work in Florida, and they're looking for other places to live because,
Yeah.
they either work in education and they are afraid of, being prosecuted for doing their jobs, you
Yeah.
know, or, they can't, justify living in a state that would pass these laws and for people who would continue to vote these politicians in who would pass
Yeah.
them. So
Yeah, well, and it's wild. I mean, Rufo has married to an Asian woman, has two multi-ethnic children, and so you'd think he would see the risks in pursuing that strategy, for people, even people he cares about, right? And I understand that it's Asians, uh, it is not, it's not part of that strategy as much so, right? But that general going down that path, right, is has so many risks for the American people.
I mean, I don't want to be negative, but I mean, like, given what this man has done, you know, I don't think his wife being an ethnic minority, I'm sure that's not something that he cares about at all unless he can leverage it to for his agenda.
Oh, sure, sure,
He
sure.
is
I mean,
single-minded.
I assume he's a smart guy, and so he's making a kind of calculated risks. He's saying like, well, this could come back. This general direction could be bad, but it's going to be fine, and I'm going to get rich in the process. So
I mean, I don't even know if he even thinks that far. I think he's a person. He has demonstrated that he is a person who, um, whatever happens, I don't think he really cares. Have you
yeah,
ever?
well, it's kind of Tucker, right?
Have you
I've
ever?
always
Yeah,
thought of Tucker Carlson
exactly.
as being a nihilist, but in
Yeah,
a
like I
bad
mean,
kind of way. Nihilist, like not all nihilists are necessarily terrible people, but kind of a not really caring about anything.
yeah, I don't think. Yeah, to me, that's just my perception. Thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support and see you next time.